go ahead and call the meeting to order. Kimberly, can you do roll, please? Here.
Vice President Secretary I'm here. Trustee here.
Okay, we will do our customary moment of silence. Thank you. Chris, would you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Motion for approval of the agenda.
Support.
Approval and support. We ask for
George,
change.
yeah, we need to assign somebody for secretary.
Oh, okay. Since
Yes.
that is gone, we need to, amend the agenda? To add this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We can amend the agenda.
Motion. Support.
And we're gonna make, is it George? Oh, wait, there's that.
Never mind that.
Okay, so we're going back to the original motion and support. Are we still all good with that?
Yes.
We're good.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. We have members of the audience may address the board on agenda items only. No rush there. Okay, we're going to move on to board topics. First item is public transparency YouTube.
Yeah, it was the last board meeting we held in Albion was pretty successful. We had a number of people there. And one of the suggestions was to be able to take our recordings and put them on YouTube, pretty much like the city council does, et cetera, over there in Albion. So Karen looked into that. We're good with that. We're going to have it up posted on YouTube, excuse me, the following day after the board session, and pretty much before the day is out. And we're also going to have a link. It'll be on our Facebook, well, probably our district-wide Facebook page as well as our website. So people can actually, if they want to watch Gavel to Gavel, can watch Gavel to Gavel. Okay. Yeah, I'll try to stay away from that.
Okay, next we have restorative practices to student discipline.
Right, in your packet under 4B, if you read your true and legislative notes, this outlines some changes that are going to take effect the 1st of August 2017. It does impact not only what we do in the buildings in regards to discipline, but it also impacts what you do as a board, okay? The whole thing is about, it adds discretion and restorative practice to student discipline. Restorative justice and restorative practice has been around for ages. I think I was trained in it back in 1979 at Star County. It really is about a set of protocols so that when a victim feels victimized, whether it's through bullying or aggressive behavior, assaultive behavior, or what have you, up to, but not including someone having possession of a firearm, it is subject to us to explore restorative justice. And the victim can choose to go that route for restorative justice and resolving the problem with their aggressor or with the person that's the point of discipline, if they so choose. And so I'm going to walk through that process with you. It also has impacts on your decision as a board. The key words that you want to look for in this document is rebuttable presumption. Okay? In other words, the decisions can be challenged back and also appealed if we don't show evidence that we've gone through and considered certain things, not only in our discipline of the buildings, but also at board level. So the factors to be considered as a section 1310B in our board policies, and so that'll be coming soon. I'm giving this to you before Neola releases that board policy. But we have to consider the student's age. Already there's exceptions for students that are expelled or suspended in 5th grade or younger, or in 6th grade and older, for mandatory expulsion issues and also for other issues that are related to violations of board policy. Okay? You have to consider the student's disciplinary history, whether the student has a disability or not, which we already currently do, the seriousness of the violation or behavior committed, which we do, whether the violation or behavior committed threaten the safety of any student or staff member, whether restorative practices will be used to address the violation or behavior committed. And in my reading, I believe that means that we have to approach the victim to find out if they're interested in restorative justice, and it is the victim that gets the choice of the defendant. Okay? And then whether a lesser intervention would properly address the violation or behavior committed. So we do that anyways. We take a look at, well, what do you think this compiles to be? And then I have a dialogue with the administrators about, should it be here, should it be there? And we kind of work through what is the appropriate level with the goal in mind to not disrupt the instructional day as much as possible or have the student lose instructional time out of the building. So with that, 1310D gives officials sole discretion over the method used to consider these factors. It creates a rebuttable presumption that a suspension of more than 10 school days or an expulsion is not justified unless school officials demonstrate that they consider each of the factors I just listed. Okay? There is no rebuttable presumption about a suspension of 10 days or fewer. So in other words, we still have the capacity under these guidelines to do an out-of-school suspension, in-school suspension, up to 10 days without having this process of rebuttable presumption. Also, and it does describe what it means by restorative practices, and for the audience and for those that are listening at home, let me read these if you don't mind. 1310C provides that such restorative practices may include victim-offender conferences that, 1, are initiated by the victim, are approved by the victim's parent or legal guardian, if the victim is at least age 15, by the victim, are attended voluntarily by the victim advocate, the offender, members of the school community, and supporters of the victim and the offender. And 4, providing an opportunity for the offender to accept responsibility for the harm caused to those affected by the misconduct and to participate in setting consequences to repair the harm. So this isn't a matter of saying, although, it will probably become a practice, but if a student takes a pail of water and pours it on the carpet in the media center, did it on purpose intentionally to make a disruption in the educational process. Instead of just sending them out of the room or sending them to the office or doing some discipline right there, they could possibly, with the conversation of the offended, the victim, which could be the school librarian, to sit down with the student, sit down with the advocate, sit down with the administration, and talk through, what do you think the proper response would be to make amends for this act? First, do you accept responsibility? Second, do you think it's something you could do to help alleviate the problem, which could be helping to clean it up, et cetera, et cetera. But it's good, that's just a really simple example, but when you get into the higher levels where kids are assaulting kids, they get into a fight and all those types of things, all of that is subject to this process. If those that are being involved in the process, in particular victim, would like to have it. Mandatory expulsion for dangerous weapon. Mandatory expulsion, Section 13D, Public Act of 2016, makes Section 1311(2) pertaining to mandatory expulsion of students for possessing a dangerous weapon, committing arson, or committing criminal sexual conduct, subject to the new RSC Section 1310D factors except when the student is being expelled for possessing a firearm. So in other words, any of those other expulsion reasons, committing arson or committing criminal sexual conduct, are open to this cause. So as you can think about a victim being sexually assaulted, that would end up being an option of the victim to decide whether or not they're going to entertain restorative justice practices. In addition, other offenses subject to Section 13D amend Section 1310 by making subsection 1 suspension or expulsion of a student in grade 6 or above for committing a physical assault at school against another student, subject to Section 1310B. So fighting is in there. And also even assaulting staff or teachers. But all that means is we have to go through the process. We need to have to document it. So when you're sitting there considering an expulsion, we have to go through that checklist, depending on what the offense is, give you information and show evidence that we did address those issues. And then you can move on to the decision at hand. Okay? Well, for one thing, it gives you more flexibility when you're considering a student in possession of a weapon. If we find that it meets the criteria, or doesn't meet the criteria of the requirements, like for a knife to have a blade longer than 3 inches or longer. Let's say it's 2 inches. But the administration went through the dialogue with them about, why did you bring the knife to school? Well, I didn't know it was in your backpack. Did you bring it because you felt threatened? No. Did you have recent conflicts with peers? We go through that checklist anyways, and then we're allowed to, based on that situation, to be able to not recommend expulsion because we've done a due diligence on the 2 sections that allow us to say the kid doesn't have a disciplinary record and the kid meets one or more of these criteria that's outlined in the policy. When you get to a point where there is a dangerous weapon, let's say the student pulled it out and another student saw it but he wasn't threatening it. If it was a dangerous weapon with 3 inches or longer, by statute, it would be mandatory to bring that to you. However, one of the things we can talk to them about is, were you intending to threaten or harm and those kind of things, and we can do restorative justice if that victim says, you know what, he didn't do anything, and I wasn't feeling threatened by it. So let's sit down with everybody, go through this process. And we can come tell you if the incident occurred, but through restorative justice, we were able to resolve that issue. But you should always be made aware any time of the dangerous weapon in possession of the student. The only difference, the only issue would be if it's a firearm. If it's a firearm, then it's mandatory and does not adhere to these kind of checklists. So it just helps us define a little bit more, gives you a little bit more latitude or leeway. It gives our administrators more latitude and leeway as long as we're practicing the steps for restorative justice.
Mandy, where does the threats of that person were going to make you threats of police, or where does that fall in here as far as where that fall in Is that acceptable in too?
It would be less than possession of a firearm on school grounds. So it would probably fall under that. My belief is it would fall under that. If we have to offer restitution to the victim in that case would be the entire district. And the question would be, is that the partnership or we should just go ahead and bring it to the board? Something like the one that occurred with us, that circumstance was extreme disruption in the education process. And at the juncture that we were at that time, where we brought it to the board, I don't think, looking at this new statute, I would consider that a full restitution piece. because it was too disruptive and because why we identified that on Facebook and so on. Maybe after their expulsion, and if we agreed that we would bring them back after expulsion, that might be a time for restitution. But a lot of times the courts know that, but right now the courts are handling that. We're going to restitution and victims for the courts. For Lakeview, they couldn't identify who the perpetrators were for those threats.
I would also comment that this gives us more leeway, but it also is a little more responsibility on our part, as they talk about in this last paragraph. I mean, this is a state law, and so we have to abide by this, sort of the checklist, as you say. I don't know if we document that well now, but it seems like now I want to make sure that if we have additional documentation requirements based on this law, that we're on top of that.
I'll guarantee you when Neola takes this law and puts it into their policy, they'll also have administrative guidelines as well. So they'll all write the administrative guidelines for the county.
Yeah, a form or a document that it's a checklist, sort of like a pilot's checklist.
Yep.
We're going to need that.
I'm sure. You know, overall, I just want you to know that if you take a higher view of this action, it's also aligned with what the Office of Civil Rights is trying to push, is to make sure that we're not suspending kids out of school as much as possible, trying to keep them in the educational process and keep them engaged in the process. So it's aligned with what we're basically trying to do.
Any questions?
I'll keep you posted.
Next is Battle Creek Math and Science.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a heads up. Every year around this time, we have our students be invited, anybody interested in the 8th grade to be invited to take the test for the entrance test for the Battle Creek Math and Science Center. And we historically have a pretty good number that qualifies since we've become a member agency 2 years ago. Last year, we ended up bringing 12 students into the Math Science Center as freshmen. I have a slot of 5. In that slot of 5, 4 of those are dedicated to the highest Marshall scores, and one of them is dedicated to the highest Marley score that is committed to coming to Marshall Public Schools as FBA. When I get done with that, and I have more students that qualify, this year we had 10, I then go down the list of Marshall qualified candidates before I go to Marley qualified candidates. And at this point there are 10, and of the 10, there are 3 total Marley students qualified to become the Math Science Center, and 7 Marshall students qualified to become the Math Science Center. So they're asking me for additional slots. I think I'm going to go ahead and award that. Because when there's extra slots, they always come to the highest scores first. If you don't understand how that works, all member districts fill their slots, and if they can't fill their slots because kids don't qualify or kids are qualified but choose not to go, which happens periodically with our kids, because they want to go to the AP coursework that we have, or the early year college, or what have you. We fill those slots and we find out how many open slots within the member districts are available. And then we go back to the overall scoring of the kids that haven't been selected yet on our wait list that qualify above the cut score. And we start from the highest and we just work down. And as things would have it, all 7 of our kids beyond the 4 that we selected are in the highest level of the county to be selected and invited, as well as the 2 Marley students. So, we did the work, we showed them capabilities and so forth, so we can support that.
Okay, next we have Harrington Elementary School updates.
Yep, one of the questions that came up, I don't know, was that you that asked for if we can get a disciplinary report back to the board? they're asking as board president for me to put that together, and we're going to put that together as available for us for the basic section. And what we look at is from October on, as far as the times we've had for the full month, and we can look at the frequency and the type of disciplinary referrals, both to the successful ones and keeping the kids in school, and also to reasons for on-school suspension. We have that going to be presented by Matt Oliver, at this board meeting, as well as in the site. Okay? A couple updates since we started. I don't know where we start first. Let me start with this. Let's do with staffing for a second. We have, since the board session, hired a full-time fourth grade teacher. We're very excited about her coming on board. She comes out of Jackson. She set the tone and the expectations very well with her class, and she's doing well at fourth grade. So we're pleased to have that filled. If everything goes right, tomorrow I will have a candidate that we'll be looking to hire in fifth grade, filling the open fifth grade position. She's been involved and engaged with our school for quite some time here. She's actually graduated out of college in this past January. So she'll be a brand new teacher, but she's also been working and supporting and volunteering in the school. So she has an understanding of what she wants to do, and she's excited about taking a position in fifth grade. Once that position comes on board, we will have a full staffing structure. Okay? What we'll do with the fifth grade teacher currently, it's kind of filling in until we fill that position. That person will go back to the PE teacher, so we'll have a full-time PE teacher instead of a long-term sub. Okay? And then on top of that, we told you last time that we were looking at adding 2 long-term certified teaching subs for the remainder of the year. We've hired one, and that individual's doing a good job for us, and she is considered the floater. And so she's filling gaps where we might not be able to fill, basically subs responding to the calls. And she's also, when we're at full staff, she's also available to support the fourth and fifth grade classes. We do have 2 or 3 pairs, really good candidates that we're trying to vet in regards to becoming additional paraprofessionals in our building. That's subject to final approval from title, and we're 99% to the point where we expect authorization for that. And that will be added to the program as well, and we're going through some training this coming Thursday. All the pairs we currently have, we will continue to do the training with our paraprofessionals based on climate and culture and what their role is and what their expectations are. Okay. And I think that's it on staffing.
Did those did the pairs, the funding night go through the ISD? I'm trying to remember. They don't.
No, remember, they don't do the program pairs anymore. So we're funding them primarily through title. And we also we had this conversation last year that when the ISD stopped doing program paraprofessionals, we paid for them out of our operational budget.
I remember how that all went.
Yeah, it's still there.
And this means our administrator is back to administrating?
Yes, actually, she was in her office pretty much most of the day and dealing with parents and so forth and kids. And really good stuff. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to having her feet on the ground. We have a number of retired teachers in Albion that have volunteered and asked for volunteer duties at the school relative to February being National Black History Month. And they're going to come in every Tuesday and Thursday for the month of February and do lessons or presentations or engagements around Black history. So we're excited about their partnership, and that should be a little glitch when we start up this week, but we'll get ironed out and they'll be on feet on the ground in the building. Thanks, Carrie, for your interest about and your encouragement about PTO. We have a couple of folks that are interested in forming a PTO for Harrington, which is great. We're actually more and more having trouble getting parents to carve out time for volunteerism. So, PTOs are struggling across each of the 4 buildings. but we're excited that there's a couple of folks interested. We need about 4 minimally parents to establish a PTO, and then reaching out to other people that could volunteer on an ad hoc basis. So Sandy's working towards that, and she's had some really good positive comments with folks about that. Last Friday, or was it last Friday or last week, I think maybe Thursday, they took the 4th and 5th grade, based on the curriculum, to the African American History Museum in Detroit. It was a really great outing. They only limited those kids that couldn't go based on whether or not they were 3 or more times in a discipline situation leading up to that trip. But they had a majority of the kids there. They had a good time. Kids came back excited. So it was nice to see that published in the paper. It was in the Reporter. Pictures and that kind of stuff of that event. Maybe it was in the... Did you guys have it? Yeah, good. Thank you, John. Sorry. There's a month-end celebration of PBIS coming up at the end of this month. In that celebration, part of that is going to be having a destination celebration of activities over at the Opportunity High School and Albion Community Center. So there's going to be auditorium for consumptive movie choices to go in the gym or choices to go swimming, those types of things, and snacks will be provided. So that's going to be a nice event that we're going to have. They are getting closer to filling out and implementing fully what our expectations are for PBIS, but they haven't quite got there yet. So there's a meeting tomorrow morning that I'm going to at 7:30 in the morning with the staff about that. And we'll see if we can get that moving faster. There is a March 16th Family Literacy Night already scheduled, which is the last one they had was pretty well attended. Meal will be served, folks will be invited, but it's quickly expanding to like a March Madness event, not for basketball. Not only is there going to be literacy, but there's going to be hopefully a meeting with PTO or a table that's recruiting folks for PTO. There's going to be a title parent meeting, which is a requirement of our title grant, to make sure that parents are included in the meeting to describe what the services are being provided through title so that they can be connected to that and offer their feedback. And then Albion College is offering some type of an experience with science. I can't tell you the details behind it, but they're really excited about bringing that into the building as well. So it's going to be a pretty cool event. We're going to have more, you're going to hear more detail, but I think you're going to want to stop in and see that. Should be
Going over there tomorrow afternoon, but it looks like I should go there on the 16th.
Yeah, 16th. You definitely want to do that.
Remind me what the AmeriCorps volunteers, the AmeriCorps program, what role are they playing now? I've forgotten what they're doing.
Well, that was a grant through Albion College, and Dr. Andy French is the director of that. VISTA members are associated with key, what I would say, domains within the community: economic development, gardening, community gardening process we're doing. We're doing some things on governance, we're doing some things on education. We have 2 primary VISTA workers that are assigned to our schools, actually 3 when you count one extra that's actually working on Albion College, but 2 primarily that come out and have connections with us. The whole gambit of that is not to just support Marshall Public Schools, but to support education primarily across the community. We also are doing a community survey and getting feedback from the community about what the community needs and what they'd like to see in the community in Albion. They're informing us through that survey about key locations that we can have the summer food program implemented across the district to make sure we don't miss any sites or locations. They're just really good advocates and partners, and hoping we're trying to do with education. But
Do they interact with the kids at all?
they don't really do direct services or volunteering. Mostly they do work with our staff or with our administration or teachers to to add capacity. Their whole concept is about building capacity in a community so when they walk out the door, they're no longer there, the capacity continues and continues to expand. So it's really a nice asset to have for all the employees. Excellent support for us. And we're doing a good job with it.
Activities and programs that can be incorporated in the school. If they're interested in different things, then we'll be willing to look into grants to support it. He has direct contact with people who work to bring these mindfulness activities in the school, but he doesn't want to say, this is what Harrington needs to do. He wants to bring all this information to Mrs. Kingston or Lisa Bailey so they can look through it, and if they give him feedback that, this is something that we'd be really interested in, he could do some more research onto it. So, they're like an extra assistant that you can
Kind of
instruct.
resource people.
Yeah.
Ferret out resources through.
Maymester for Albion College in swing at this point. Maymester, if you haven't, well, we had a presentation yesterday. What's really cool is every building in our district has a Maymester student or two. So it's very exciting. Harrington's going to have a Maymester. The Opportunity High School is going to have at least one front too. So we're pleased to have that support for Albion College. The other thing was, Facebook. We have a Harrington Facebook page. If you haven't seen it, it's up and running. Lisa Bailey is coordinating that for Harrington. So you can log on to that. And also we have a weekly newsletter that goes out to parents. Sandy Kingston is taking back control of that. To be able to publish that on a weekly basis. And so we're improving communication that way as well. So those are the changes so far since the last we talked. And I'll keep you posted on things as they progress. Is there any questions about that?
Are in the community being made aware of this? We got feedback from community members who expressed concerns and about these activities. They're being, these are being sort of publicized. It's great to be known about it.
Through announcements and there's a strategy to make sure that we're connecting on almost a weekly basis with them and with the commercial advisor chronicle and also with the audience papers. So, and the newsletters, and so they always, they showcase every newsletter, one of our staff, and if the new staff comes on, they showcase them. So that information is going to come out.
I just want them to know this is what's going on. It's great that I know, but I want these parents to know about all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just going on with your Facebook. Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to our action item, financial. Consider approving the sale of 2007 refunding bonds.
I'll do the background and I'll turn it over to my trusted colleague. That would be you, Becca. All right. On November 14, 2016, the board adopted a resolution authorizing the issuance and delegating the sale of Marshall Public Schools 2007 refunding bonds. The resolution allowed the district to explore if refunding the bonds would result in sufficient cost savings to the district to do so. It has been determined that it is in the best interest of the district to pursue the sale of the bonds. The board is now being asked to approve the sale of said bond. Excuse me, is the recommendation of the superintendent that action item financial be approved as presented.
We have, is there a motion?
Yeah. Moved.
So just a little background, these were the last portion of the 2007 bonds that were callable. They weren't able to go last refunding that we did, so it was a small amount. It's 1.7 million, and what happened was the market has been so up and down lately. We were contemplating not refunding them, but we decided to reach out to Chemical Bank and sell them privately. to see if we could get a little bit more savings and see if Chemical Bank could come in, if they could come in with a good interest rate. And so, they were able to come in with a good interest rate. We saved about $190,000, and we were only looking at saving about $100,000 prior if we were to go out on the open market. So selling them to Chemical Bank, we didn't have to get a bond rating, and our underwriter was able to take, our bond underwriter was able to take their fee down. So it worked out really good. We're gonna pay them off 3 years sooner than what we would have, and as long as the market property values continue to tick up, I mean, we've done them pretty conservatively, which is about 1% increase. So we're just hoping that the property values continue on, and it should be good. So.
And what does that do to our interest rate?
Oh, and the millage rate, and thank you. One of the big reasons why I wanted to continue to do it was the millage rate, because the millage rate it's seeing an incline because we didn't have the property values that we were hoping for increase in last year. And so basically with doing this, we were able to keep the 7.05 millage rate for the next couple of years, where we were going to see an increase next year. And instead of it going up to 7.39 for 1 year, we're looking at about a 7.20, which will still kind of keep us out of the school bond loan revolving fund, which will save the taxpayers a lot of money. So the millage rate was actually the big deciding point in continuing on with this.
Good, so in recap, flattening the millage rate, that we expected that spike, that we continue to whittle that down. We've reduced the payoff by 3 years for the taxpayers, and we saved the taxpayers $190,000.
It's worth a newspaper article.
John?
Anytime you save the taxpayers money, it's a good idea.
It's worth talking about.
What's your tally?
The total number of what we saved in the past 2 years for the taxpayers, because it's quite a big number, with refunding the bonds.
Well, I can tell you.
Absolutely. Okay, anybody have any questions? Okay, let's start with Terry.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, next we have public comments, and this is on any item. Somebody want to- Okay. CMO?